I was a 34-year-old financial advisor when I found myself in the middle of a nightmare disguised as wedding planning. After 2 years with Jessica, I thought I knew her heart. Our future together seemed bright, until her demand came from nowhere. If you actually loved me, you would pay off my parents' mortgage. Real men take care of their woman's family. Those words changed everything about how I saw her. I just nodded, hiding my shock while mentally reevaluating our entire relationship. Let me know where you are watching from, and hit like and subscribe to see how this outrageous demand ended our engagement. Growing up in Portland with hardworking parents who lived paycheck to paycheck taught me the value of financial responsibility. I put myself through college, took out loans I diligently paid back, and slowly built my financial advisory business from scratch. By 34, I had established a solid reputation, bought a comfortable condo downtown, and finally felt financially secure after years of careful planning. When my friend Taylor invited me to a dinner party 2 years ago, meeting someone special was the last thing on my mind. I was focused on an upcoming business certification and expanding my client base. But across a crowded living room, Jessica caught my attention immediately. Tall with auburn hair and a confident smile, she was discussing marketing strategies with another guest. Her intelligence and passion were evident even from across the room. Eventually, Taylor introduced us. Jessica was a marketing executive for a local tech company, 31 years old, and had the most infectious laugh I had ever heard. We connected instantly over our shared love of hiking the Oregon trails, true crime podcasts, and Italian food. By the end of the evening, we had exchanged numbers and made plans for dinner the following week. Our first date at Romano Italian Bistro confirmed what I suspected at the party. Jessica was different from anyone I had dated before. She was independent, driven in her career, and seemed to have a healthy relationship with money. She insisted on splitting the check, which I found refreshing. We talked for hours about our goals and dreams. Jessica wanted to eventually become a chief marketing officer while I shared my plans to expand my financial advisory practice. The relationship progressed naturally. We dated exclusively for 6 months, before taking weekend trips together. At the 1-year mark, Jessica's lease was ending, and it made sense for her to move into my condo. Living together was surprisingly easy. We complemented each other well. I was more organized and detail-oriented, while Jessica brought spontaneity and creativity into our home. We established a system where we split household expenses proportionally based on our incomes. It seemed like we were completely aligned on financial matters. After another year together, I knew Jessica was the one. I planned a special proposal at Romano, where we had our first date. The owner, who had come to know us as regulars, helped me arrange everything. When dessert arrived with the ring presented on a silver platter, Jessica gasped, tears forming in her eyes. Her yes was immediate and enthusiastic. She called her parents right from the restaurant, putting them on speakerphone to share our joy. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of excitement. We set a date for summer just 3 months away. Our friends were thrilled for us, organizing an engagement party where everyone celebrated until the early morning hours. Jessica glowed with happiness as she showed off her ring, a sapphire, surrounded by small diamonds, that I had chosen because she once mentioned she preferred colored stones to traditional diamonds. Soon after our engagement, Jessica suggested we should have dinner with her parents, Mark and Diana, at their home in the suburbs. I had met them briefly at a few family gatherings, but this would be our first real opportunity to connect as family. Jessica spoke of them fondly, describing her father as a sales director for a pharmaceutical company and her mother as a part-time interior designer. Their house was impressive, a large 2-story colonial in an upscale neighborhood with manicured lawns and luxury cars in the driveways. Inside, the decor was elegant and clearly expensive. Mark greeted me with a firm handshake, while Diana hugged me warmly, welcoming me to the family. Throughout dinner, they asked about my business, seeming genuinely interested in my work. They shared stories about Jessica growing up, and we laughed over bottles of expensive wine. At the time, I thought nothing of their lifestyle, assuming their dual incomes afforded them these luxuries. There were a few comments about recent renovations and their country club membership that made me wonder fleetingly if they were living slightly above their means. but I dismissed these thoughts as judgmental. As the evening ended, Diana hugged me again, whispering, "We are so happy Jessica found someone like you. She deserves the very best." I felt accepted and excited to join their family. Driving home, Jessica squeezed my hand and said, "They really love you already. I cannot wait to be your wife." My heart was full, and any subtle warning signs were obscured by my growing love for Jessica. After our engagement announcement, subtle changes in Jessica began to surface. What started as exciting wedding planning sessions gradually became tense discussions about budget. The modest ceremony we had initially agreed upon, a garden wedding with around 70 guests, was quickly expanding under Jessica's direction. First came the venue change. The beautiful botanical garden I had suggested was suddenly not grand enough. Jessica insisted we book the Grand Palladian, an exclusive hotel downtown with a ballroom that cost 3 times our original venue budget. When I expressed concern, Jessica frowned, her voice taking on an unfamiliar edge. "Ben, this is our wedding day. Do you want us to look cheap in front of everyone?" I thought. We were building a life together where we would not have to compromise on special moments. Wanting to make her happy, I agreed to stretch the budget for the venue. But the concessions did not stop there. The guest list grew from 70 to 200, with Jessica adding distant relatives and business associates of her parents I had never even heard of. The simple, elegant flowers we had discussed were replaced with elaborate arrangements. The photographer package expanded to include a second shooter drone footage and a same-day edit. Each time I tried to discuss financial boundaries, Jessica became increasingly dismissive. "You are a financial advisor, for goodness sake. I thought you were successful," she said during one particularly heated discussion. "Is this really who I am marrying? Someone who nickel and dimes his own wedding?" Her words stung, but I rationalized her behavior as wedding stress. This was not the Jessica I knew, the woman who had once been so reasonable about money. I tried to be understanding while gently holding some boundaries. Around this time, Jessica reconnected with her childhood friend Amanda, who had recently returned to Portland after her divorce. Amanda was constantly at our condo, and I noticed how conversations changed when she was around. She would make comments like, "My ex-husband was too cheap to let me have the wedding I deserved. That is why it never worked out." Jessica would nod knowingly, glancing my way. 6 weeks before the wedding, Jessica's parents invited us over for a family dinner. Throughout the meal, the conversation repeatedly turned to finances in a way that made me increasingly uncomfortable. Mark asked pointed questions about my client base fee structure and long-term business projections. Diana commented on various luxury items other family members had recently purchased. "Did you see the boat your cousin James bought his wife for their anniversary?" Jessica told me all about it. "That is real generosity," she said, while Jessica and her parents exchanged glances. I noticed Jessica becoming more distant when I was home, constantly texting or taking calls in another room. When I asked who she was speaking with so frequently, she would casually say, "Just wedding stuff," or "Mom needs help with something." Several times I came home to find her and her parents in deep conversation at our dining table, only for them to quickly change the subject when I entered. Our first major fight happened when the final catering bill arrived nearly double our original estimate due to last-minute additions Jessica had made, without consulting me. "Jessica, we had a budget we both agreed on. These changes add $15,000 we had not planned for," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Her response left me speechless. "Well, I assumed you would be providing for us as my husband. Is that not what a man is supposed to do? Take care of his wife. My father always made sure my mother had everything she wanted." Who was this person? The independent, financially responsible woman I fell in love with seemed to have vanished. Still, I told myself this was temporary insanity brought on by wedding planning. After the wedding, my Jessica would return. 2 weeks before the wedding, Jessica announced her parents wanted to host a special dinner at their house. "Just us 4, she explained, "to talk about the future." The formality of the invitation felt strange, but I agreed, hoping to repair the growing tension between us. The evening at Jessica's parents' house began with an unusual formality. Diana had prepared an elaborate four-course meal, and Mark opened a bottle of champagne, the moment we arrived, toasting to family and the future. The conversation during dinner was strangely stilted, focusing on recent renovations to their home and their upcoming 35th wedding anniversary. After dessert, Mark suggested we move to the living room for coffee and cognac. The transition felt oddly like a business meeting, rather than a family gathering. Jessica sat unusually close to her parents, on the sofa across from me, the three of them presenting a united front. Mark cleared his throat and began what sounded like a rehearsed speech. "Ben, we could not be happier to welcome you into our family. You are everything we hoped Jessica would find in a husband, smart, successful, and clearly going places in your career. Thank you." I responded, a sense of unease growing. This felt orchestrated. Mark continued, his tone shifting. "As you know, family is everything to us. We have always provided the best for Jessica, and now that you will be taking our place as her primary provider, we wanted to discuss something important with you." Diana jumped in, her eyes suddenly watery. "Mark and I have worked so hard all our lives. We had hoped to be in a better position for retirement at this stage, but with the housing market crash years ago and some unfortunate investments," her voice trailed off dramatically. "The thing is," Mark continued, picking up the rehearsed dialogue, "we have been struggling with our mortgage for some time. The payments have become unmanageable with the adjustable rate and with retirement approaching." I sat silently stunned as I realized where this was heading. A quick glance at Jessica showed not surprise but anticipation. "Ben," Jessica said, reaching for my hand across the coffee table, "Mom and Dad need help. Their mortgage is underwater, and they are at risk of losing their home." I struggled to maintain my composure. "What exactly are you asking?" There was a moment of silence before Jessica delivered the line that would change everything. "If you actually loved me, you would pay off my parents' mortgage. Real men take care of their woman's family." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. I maintained a neutral expression despite the shock waves crashing through me. Mark quickly filled the silence. "It is $450,000. With your business doing so well, we thought it would be a meaningful wedding gift from you to us to Jessica, really. A fresh start for the family." Diana dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "We would finally be able to enjoy our golden years without this burden. You have no idea what this would mean to us." I looked at Jessica, searching for any sign that she recognized the magnitude and inappropriateness of what they were asking. Instead, I saw only expectation and a hint of impatience. "This is a significant decision," I finally said, my professional training kicking in to maintain composure. "I will need to review my finances and think about this. I cannot give you an answer tonight." Jessica's face hardened slightly, but Mark nodded with a confident smile. Of course. Take the time you need. But the wedding is in 2 weeks, so." The implication was clear. An answer was expected before our vows. The drive home was tense. Jessica immediately resumed the pressure. "They have done so much for me my whole life, Ben. This is your chance to show me and them what kind of man you really are." I could barely focus on the road. Who was this woman beside me? And how had I missed all the signs leading to this moment? That night I lay awake, long after Jessica fell asleep. I replayed our entire relationship in my mind, searching for clues I had missed. The subtle comments about providing her, increasing fixation on my income, the changed attitude toward money. After our engagement, each moment now cast in a disturbing new light. Unable to sleep, I went to our home office and opened my laptop. Out of a gut feeling, I checked the browser history on our shared computer. What I found confirmed my worst fears. Jessica had searched phrases like how to get fiancé to pay family debts, when to ask partner for financial help, and convincing boyfriend to help parents financially. The searches dated back months, some even before our engagement. This was not a spontaneous request. This had been a calculated plan. The next morning I called my best friend Frank and asked to meet for coffee. I needed an outside perspective from someone I trusted. When I explained the situation, Frank's jaw literally dropped. Ben, that is insane. They are basically trying to extort money from you before the wedding. This is not normal. This is not what love looks like. His words confirmed what I already knew but needed to hear. Over the next 2 days, Jessica continued the pressure campaign, alternating between emotional appeals and guilt trips. Meanwhile, I quietly did some digging into her parents' financial situation through industry connections. What I discovered was damning. Mark and Diana had a history of living far beyond their means. They had refinanced their house multiple times to fund their lifestyle, extracted all the equity, and were indeed underwater on their mortgage. More disturbingly, I learned through a mutual acquaintance that Jessica's previous boyfriend, a surgeon she had dated before me, had ended their relationship after being pressured to invest in one of Mark's side business ventures. This was a pattern, not an isolated incident, and I had been selected as their next target. After 48 hours of intense pressure from Jessica, I decided it was time to end the charade. I texted her at work suggesting we have dinner with her parents at our condo that evening to discuss the mortgage situation. Jessica immediately agreed, obviously believing I was ready to capitulate. I spent the afternoon preparing. I gathered financial documents, including our prenuptial agreement draft that Jessica had previously agreed to, but we had not yet signed. I also prepared a detailed breakdown of what a reasonable financial partnership in marriage would look like. Most importantly, I steeled my resolve, knowing this confrontation would likely end our relationship. When Jessica arrived home, she was practically glowing with anticipation. She kissed my cheek and whispered, "You are making the right decision, babe. I promise you will not regret this." Her confidence that I had decided to pay nearly $500,000 to her parents confirmed everything I needed to know about her character. Her parents arrived at 7, bearing an expensive bottle of champagne, clearly expecting a celebration. Mark clapped me on the shoulder with an air of smug satisfaction that made my skin crawl. Diana hugged me, calling me son, with an affection that now seemed entirely transactional. I invited everyone to sit at our dining table, where I had arranged 4 folders. The atmosphere was cheerful, as they interpreted the folders as evidence of my compliance. Jessica even reached over to squeeze my hand, misreading my calm demeanor as acceptance. "I have given your request serious consideration," I began evenly. "As a financial advisor, I believe in making sound financial decisions based on complete information." They all nodded encouragingly, completely missing my tone. "First, let me clarify what you are asking. You want me to give you $450,000 to pay off a mortgage on a house that is underwater in value by approximately $100,000, a house that I would have no ownership interest in. Is that correct?" Mark's smile faltered slightly. "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds so transactional. This is family, Ben. We are talking about family." "Family," I repeated. "Let us talk about family." I opened the folders and distributed them. Inside each was a printed conversation history between Jessica and Amanda, retrieved from our shared cloud storage, that Jessica had forgotten I had access to. In these messages, Jessica explicitly discussed her strategy to get me to pay her parents' mortgage. She called me a good investment, and laughed about how easy it would be to manipulate me because I was so in love with her. There were discussions about timing the request close enough to the wedding that I would feel trapped. The color drained from Jessica's face as she realized what I was showing them. "That is private," she gasped, trying to snatch the papers back. "Just like my financial information was private before you decided to make demands on it," I replied calmly. I looked directly at Mark and Diana. "Did you know about these conversations?" Their shocked expressions suggested they had not been privy to the explicit manipulation, though they had clearly been willing participants in the scheme. "Jessica," I said, turning to her, "I have a question. If I had said no to paying your parents' mortgage, would you still have wanted to marry me?" The room fell silent as Jessica struggled to answer. Her hesitation told me everything. "That is what I thought," I continued. This was never about love or family. This was a financial transaction disguised as a marriage. What are you saying? Jessica finally managed tears forming in her eyes. Tears I now recognized as tactical rather than genuine. I am saying the wedding is off. I will not be manipulated or extorted. I will not enter a marriage where my value is measured by my willingness to take on unreasonable financial burdens. You cannot do this. Jessica exploded, her composed facade completely cracking. We sent invitations. Everyone knows my dress cost $20,000. Her priorities were never more clear than in that moment of panic over appearances rather than our relationship. Mark attempted to salvage the situation, his sales background evident in his pivot. Ben, perhaps we approached this wrong. Let us discuss a more reasonable arrangement. No, I said firmly. There will be no arrangement. There will be no wedding. I have already contacted the venue and other vendors this afternoon. The deposits are lost, but I have stopped all further payments. This is ridiculous, Jessica shouted, standing up. You are throwing away our future over money. What kind of man does that? A man with self-respect and boundaries, I replied. A man who expects honesty and partnership in marriage, not exploitation. Diana, who had been quietly crying, finally spoke. Jessica, what did you do? These messages. I knew we were asking for help, but this. Jessica whirled on her mother. Do not pretend you were not part of this. This was always the plan. Find someone successful who could solve the family problems. In that moment, as they began arguing amongst themselves, I realized how close I had come to legally binding myself to this family of manipulators. I think you should leave now, I said quietly but firmly. Jessica, you can arrange to collect your things tomorrow while I am at work. I will have everything packed for you. You will regret this. Mark threatened, suddenly dropping all pretense of warmth. You have no idea who you are dealing with. Actually, I do now. I responded, standing to show them out. And I have documentation of everything, including this conversation which I am recording with the consent of being in my home. I would advise against any further threats. Jessica made one last attempt, her voice suddenly soft and pleading. Ben, baby, we can work this out. I love you. This was just a misunderstanding. The manipulation was so transparent now that I could see it clearly. No, Jessica, it is over. Please leave. After they stormed out, I immediately changed the locks, called my bank to secure my accounts, and emailed my attorney. Within hours, I had canceled all wedding arrangements and sent a brief factual message to guests explaining that the wedding was canceled. That night, for the first time in months, I slept peacefully, knowing I had narrowly escaped a lifetime of financial and emotional manipulation. The next 3 days passed in a blur of logistics. I arranged for Jessica's belongings to be packed and left with the building doorman. I blocked her number after receiving dozens of alternately threatening and pleading messages. Her parents called my office repeatedly, but my assistant, briefed on the situation, blocked their numbers as well. I was deep in client work on the third day, trying to focus on normal life again, when my office door burst open. Jessica, her parents, and even her sister Melanie, whom I had only met twice, crowded into my small office space, faces flushed and expressions frantic. Ben, Jessica cried out, looking nothing like the polished professional I had known. Her makeup was smeared, her clothing rumpled. You have to talk to us. You cannot just disappear and ignore. Everyone I remained, seated, maintaining the calm I had cultivated through years of handling delicate client financial crises. I am at work, I said evenly. This is inappropriate and unprofessional. Unprofessional, Mark sputtered, his face reddening. You canceled a wedding 2 weeks before the date. Do you have any idea of the embarrassment you have caused our family? My colleagues were visibly watching through the glass walls of my office, some already moving toward my door, concerned by the intrusion. Jessica has been devastated, Diana said, attempting a softer approach. She has hardly eaten. She made one mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, I interrupted. What your family attempted was a calculated financial exploitation, and based on what I have learned, not your first attempt with Jessica's partners." Melanie stepped forward, surprisingly taking a different tone. "Ben, please. They have already told people you would help with the mortgage. Dad already contacted a realtor about a retirement property in Arizona. They need this." Her honesty was refreshing, but only confirmed my decision. "That is not my problem, or my responsibility." Jessica suddenly changed tactics, moving close to my desk and lowering her voice to the intimate tone I once found so endearing. "Ben, I love you. I got carried away with the wedding and let my parents influence me too much. We can start over, go to counseling." I looked at her directly, seeing clearly the manipulation in her eyes that I had once mistaken for affection. "No, Jessica. There is no starting over. I have seen who you really are, and we want fundamentally different things from a relationship." Mark, growing desperate, blurted out, "We will sue you for breach of promise. The embarrassment, the deposits, the emotional damage." My office door opened, and my colleague Thomas, who was also a former litigation attorney, stepped in. I could not help overhearing. "Perhaps I should mention that I would be happy to represent Ben pro bono if necessary, and that breach of promise suits rarely succeed in modern courts, particularly when there is evidence of attempted financial coercion, which I and several other colleagues have now witnessed." The family fell silent, realizing they had created a scene in front of multiple witnesses. "Security has been called," Thomas added calmly. "I suggest you leave voluntarily before they arrive." Jessica made one final desperate attempt. "Ben, please. My family really needs this money. We will lose everything." For a moment I almost felt pity. Almost, "You have lost something far more valuable than money. You lost someone who truly loved you because you and your family decided to exploit that love." As security arrived to escort them out, Mark turned back with a final threat. "This is not over. Your reputation will be ruined when people hear about this." I simply nodded. I would rather have my financial security and self-respect intact than my reputation. Feel free to tell people exactly why the wedding was canceled. I have nothing to hide. After they were gone, my colleagues gathered around, offering support and even congratulations on my narrow escape. My boss even stopped by, later assuring me that the firm fully supported me and offering a few days off if needed. That evening, my lawyer called to confirm that a temporary restraining order had been filed, preventing Jessica and her family from contacting me or coming to my workplace again. While it felt extreme, the scene at my office had proven it necessary. Over the following weeks, Jessica attempted to spread various stories on social media, claiming I had been unfaithful, that I had financial problems, even that I had lied about my profession. Each time, mutual friends who knew the truth defended me. Eventually, one close friend showed me screenshots of Jessica already pursuing a new relationship with a local real estate developer known for his family wealth. 6 months after the canceled wedding, I heard through mutual connections that Jessica's parents had indeed lost their house to foreclosure. They had apparently been far deeper in debt than even I had discovered. Jessica had moved in with her new boyfriend after just 2 months of dating, and rumors circulated that his family was already expressing concerns about her spending habits and financial expectations. I felt no satisfaction in their troubles, only relief at my escape, and a renewed appreciation for financial transparency in relationships. 1 year after what would have been my wedding day, I found myself reflecting on the journey I had been through. The initial pain and betrayal had given way to valuable lessons that transformed how I approached relationships and life in general. The healing process had not been easy. After the dramatic office confrontation, I threw myself into work, avoiding dating entirely for several months. I spent time reconnecting with friends who had been somewhat neglected during my relationship with Jessica. Weekend hiking trips, long abandoned during the wedding planning chaos, became my therapy. Gradually, I developed a sharper awareness of manipulation tactics. I became more attuned to the subtle signs of transactional thinking in relationships that I had previously missed. The experience had not made me cynical, but it had made me wiser. 8 months after the breakup, I met Allison at a financial planners conference. Unlike the instant attraction I had felt with Jessica, my connection with Allison built slowly and authentically. She was a certified financial planner who shared my values about money being a tool for security and opportunity rather than status. Our first dates involved honest conversations about financial philosophies, past relationships, and long-term goals. Allison found the story of my near marriage amusing rather than alarming. On our third date, she joked, "So just to be clear, I have my own mortgage that I pay myself, and I have no expectation that you will finance my parents' retirement." I nearly choked on my drink, laughing, appreciating her directness. What struck me most about my relationship with Allison was the absence of pressure. We enjoyed each other's company, without constant escalation or expectations. When we eventually became exclusive after 3 months, it was a mutual decision based on compatibility and genuine affection, not a strategic move in a larger scheme. Financial transparency became non-negotiable for me. With Allison, we openly discussed budgets, savings goals, and spending habits early on. This openness created a foundation of trust that made our relationship stronger than anything I had experienced before. The deeper lesson I learned was about the difference between love and exploitation. True love uplifts both people, respecting boundaries and creating partnerships where both individuals can thrive. What Jessica and her family had attempted was the opposite. They had seen love as a weakness to exploit rather than a strength to nurture. I also learned to trust my instincts. Looking back, there had been subtle signs I had ignored: small comments about financial expectations, Jessica's changing behavior after the engagement, the odd dynamics with her family. Now, I understood that discomfort was often my subconscious, recognizing something my conscious mind wanted to overlook. Perhaps most importantly, I found peace. The embarrassment of canceling a wedding paled in comparison to the freedom of escaping a lifetime of manipulation. I was grateful, every day, for the clarity that had come just in time. As I write this reflection, Allison and I have been dating for 6 months. We are in no rush toward marriage, enjoying the process of building something genuine. When I told her I was sharing this story, she encouraged me, saying that perhaps it might help someone else recognize the red flags I had missed. So I ask you, my viewers, what financial boundaries do you consider essential in relationships? Have you ever experienced financial manipulation from a partner or their family? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else recognize warning signs in their own relationships. And if you found value in my story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. I share these personal experiences hoping they might help others navigate similar situations with greater wisdom than I initially showed. Thank you for listening, and remember that true love never comes with financial ultimatums or conditions. The right partner will value you for who you are, not what you can provide.